Welcome in to the inaugural PHNX Draft Podcast, an extension of PHNX Cardinals. I'm Johnny Venerable. He is Bo Brack, and Bo fired up to be talking about NFL Draft Week with our Arizona Cardinals.
You know, it was always going to happen. As encouraged as we were from this team out of the gates, getting a big win against Dallas in Week 3, they're still going to have 2 top picks in the first round. And, you know, those are finally trending in the right direction, although the results on the field are not great because of that. But we're excited to break down some top prospects that can be making their way onto the Cardinals roster as early as the 2024 offseason.
To get everybody up to speed, here are where the Arizona Cardinals at. The updated draft order, the Arizona Cardinals, Bo, pick 7th right now with their own pick, and the Houston's Texan pick, correct me if I'm wrong, pick 11th for the Arizona Cardinals.
That's right. That Texans pick, if we're talking real stocks, pretty volatile right now, right? You might want to, if you want them to, they're going to probably fall down the draft board, which is unfortunate for Cardinals fans. Looking at one of the easiest cake schedules in the NFL, CJ Stroud, Johnny, unfortunately, bucking the trend as far as Ohio State quarterbacks go at the NFL level, looks solid. Those Texans, you know, they're going to beat up on some bad teams, including the Carolina Panthers coming up real soon. It's unfortunate for the Cardinals who own that pick, but so far so good. It's in the top 10, but as I said, probably selling that stock. Not money asked for it, but also I'm going to probably buy Cardinals their own pick stock right now, taking on the Rams. They could enter top 5 territory as early as this week.
Yeah, let's check out our Texans tracker one more time as it relates to where the Houston Texans are and where they could be going. Love to see that loss against Atlanta last week with Desmond Ridder and company. Like, again, do I think this team is going to win the division? Are they going to win the AFC South? Probably not. But they're probably closer, Bo Brack, to a 6, 7, 8 win team compared to what many thought was the worst team in the NFL this year. Stroud looks exponentially more advanced than both Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson. That's unfortunate for the Cardinals. What's still fortunate, however, is the fact that this team is still going to have a premium first-round pick in a first round, Bo, that has tons of blue chip prospects. Like, we thought the 2023 draft was pretty solid, right? But it was evident the Cardinals wanted to double and triple down into 2024 because of the bounty that was available with the blue chips. And that blue chip has to start with Ohio State wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., the son of NFL great Marvin Harrison, once of the Indianapolis Colts, into the Hall of Fame. Marvin, to me, projects as a true number 1 wide receiver, something that you cannot put a price tag on in today's NFL. You want Larry Fitzgerald, you want Calvin Johnson, right? You want Justin Jefferson. This is the prototype. Somebody that can come in and instantly be a number 1 target for whomever your quarterback is. Hopefully, Bo Brack, it is Kyler Murray, but size, 6'4", explosiveness, speed, elite hands. This year, you know, he's not playing with CJ Stroud. He's getting some hospital balls thrown his way. He has overcome adversity with the state of the Ohio State quarterbacks right now, and he is easily the best non-quarterback in this draft.
I mean, if you just look at his gene pool with Marvin Harrison Jr., he has a bust in Canton. He's one of the most productive wide receivers of all time, one of the best duos in quarterback wide receiver tandems between him and Peyton Manning. And you've got the opportunity, Marvin Harrison Jr. being an even more, I guess, well-rounded receiver than his dad was. I mean, his dad was an elite route runner, and he had speed to burn coming out of Syracuse way back then. But you've got Marvin Harrison Jr., who, you know, they're throwing this word around way too often, but it sticks with Marvin Harrison Jr. Generational. As you said, he's bigger than his dad, 6'4". He's physical, but he's also got that route running ability. Man, I mean, this is a guy, like, you can look at this Arizona Cardinals roster and say, look, they might have bigger needs elsewhere, but when you have a player, this is where you take BPI. This is where you take a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. You take the luxury pick of him with your first pick potentially? Marvin Harrison Jr. It feels as can't miss as possible in this draft.
AJ Green, Julio Jones, as I mentioned, Larry Fitzgerald. Like, when these guys enter the draft, they're going top 5 and they're changing the outlook of your franchise, not only offensively, but what it does reinvigorating football here in the Valley. Like, it's taken the baton from what Paris Johnson Jr. is doing as a rookie and what Jonathan Gannon and company have instilled and said, okay, we're going to take it to the next level. The Cardinals, they deserve a player and a prospect like this. And Bo, that's why he tops our Fab 5 this week.
He does, and if there's any danger of him going to the Bears and they can ruin another wide receiver quarterback combination, I'm going to be out inside of Hallis Hall and I'm going to be protesting and I'm going to have poster board. And I'm going to say, let's save MVH, let's get him into the desert. Yeah. But also, when you start to look at luxury picks potentially, one that was mistabbed, the luxury pick, Johnny, continuing our Fab 5, was the tackle position with Paris Johnson Jr. They looked at the Cardinals offensive line and they said, hey, they got DJ Humphries. Then you would say that's even more so. That's a little excessive taking a tackle in this year's draft, where I say you got to look at the prospect. And Joe Alt from Notre Dame, an absolute just massive human being at 6'8", obviously way over 300 pounds, about 315, just a person mover. That's what he's been doing at Notre Dame for so many years. He continues to do it and show out each and every one of these games. He's got all the awards, all the accolades that you want, but he's a guy that you can book in with Paris Johnson Jr. and you can set it and basically forget it as far as your offensive line, no matter who's playing quarterback. But if you've got two controllable pieces, your right tackle and your left tackle, and I don't care where Paris goes or where Joe Alt goes, but they're both guys that can just slide into those positions and protect the quarterback and open up running lanes. You got to love what Joe Alt from Notre Dame offers. He's our number 2 of our Fab 5 prospects. What do you think about Alt?
He's one of my favorite players, if not my favorite player in this entire draft. He's a plug-and-play NFL left tackle. He allows the Cardinals to do so many things. They've had a tough time running left this year. Paris Johnson Jr. has been a stalwart on the right side. DJ Humphries is getting up there in age. He's over 30 years old. Last year of his contract, assuming that they don't pick up his option for next year, he's got all of his guaranteed money pointed to 2023. I believe the Cardinals will lean into the strength of this draft, just like last year. It was a good tackle class last year. Hey, guess what? It's even better in 2024, led by Joel. He's got incredibly nimble feet. He's not a stonewall tackle based off those guys in the past that could only run block, right? Mike McGlinchey came from Notre Dame. He's a good run blocker, not a great pass protector. They sling the rock now at Notre Dame. They play real big boy offensive football, and he is the constant there, has not allowed a sack this year, has been dominant even in their losses. I think, to me, outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., that's the best case scenario. You make a strength even stronger. Cardinals offensive line is ahead of schedule, but as you pointed out, to have 2 bookend tackles under cost controlled for the next half decade, protecting probably Kyler Murray, that's how you set up your franchise quarterback for success, and that's how you dominate the trenches like San Francisco and Seattle have shown to be the template in the NFC West. So we talk about Joe Alt, and while I believe Marvin Harrison Jr., Joe Alt offensively are the belle of the ball, what about the defensive side of the football? How about Jared Verse out of Florida State, Bo Brack? To me, the top pass rusher right now. I don't love ACC football. He translates even the mundane ACC conference, right? 2.5 sacks on the season, dominant performances. You turn on Florida State, it looks like an FSU SEC type of defensive line. Explosive, right? Somebody that's plug and play. Cardinals have some solid contributors on the edge, right? We're hopeful B.J. Ojulari can take that next step. Still wondering, what's Zaven Collins' long-term fit with this team? Jared Verse comes in, unquestioned starter from day one. Very similar to what they did with Paris Johnson Jr. You don't screw around. This guy is an every down player in the NFL come 2024, and I believe under the tutelage of Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon, can be a Hassan Reddick-esque type of pass rusher. 10 to 12 sacks, book it every year, if not more so. Plus, he can play the run, has all the tools to be a successful every down defensive end.
Explosive, violent, the bend you want. And as you kind of pointed out, you can be encouraged by this Cardinals rotation and their pass rush, but nobody has said, hey, this is my job now and going forward for the foreseeable future. And even B.J. Ojulari, we're going to have to see a massive step between now and the end of the season to say, hey, he's a piece moving forward. As much as we like him as an SEC ass kicker, you like what you've seen from Jared Verse. Week 1 of the college football season, he goes up against LSU and was making plays for the Seminoles, making negative plays. And he just kind of fits, like you said. I love the Hassan Reddick comp. JG won't ever make a comp ever, but I think that Jared Verse, a guy that's versatile, and Nick Rollis would know exactly what to do with him. And like now we're looking after wide receiver, which I believe is becoming a premium position. We've looked at two premium positions for sure with the Arizona Cardinals, at the tackle position again, and then of course at the edge position, the edge rusher position with Jared Verse. I mean, 6'4", 250, that's what you want. And you can add him plug and play, and he's going to be disrupting NFC West backfields going forward. Next, you start to look at it and you want to kind of continue the conversation as far as, premium positions. And I think you look at one that was emphasized in the draft, but beyond, like in the end of day 2 and the beginning of day 3 for the Arizona Cardinals, they took Garrett Williams. They took the red shirt, because he had the medicals, right? And hopefully he'll get back on the field this week. And then they also found a starter in day 3 in Keitrell Clark. But you continue to add that, and you have an opportunity and go in and get maybe what's considered the consensus top corner in the draft. I got to put Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama on my board, Johnny, because of what he's able to do. He's so solid as far as a ball hawking corner. Love what we've seen, his ability to get his hands on balls in big moments. He doesn't seem overmatched ever since his arrival to Tuscaloosa. And this is one where you start to look at some need too. The Arizona Cardinals secondary has been absolutely just it's been exposed. And as much as we've been encouraged by Clark and by hopefully Garrett Williams, you look at Marco Wilson, he hasn't proven that he's not expendable and won't continue his career in the near future in another uniform. The Arizona Cardinals need help at the secondary. I think they need a true outside corner, somebody that can be out on an island. And, as much as I like these two young guys, I think McKinstry gives you that element.
Kool-Aid, to me, you're going to always compare him to what came before, and that was Patrick Surtain, who's been an all-pro level corner with the Denver Broncos, was their CB1 in Alabama. I think that's an unfair comp for him. While I like Kool-Aid a lot, I think actually a pretty good comp for him as a former Arizona Cardinal and Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie. Very slight, right? And so prototypical press man corner, but you got to worry about, okay, can he come up and stick a man? What you've liked out of Keitrell Clark as a rookie for this Cardinal team is he can play the run. Like, I think Kool-Aid McKinstry is going to dominate the offseason. I think he's going to have a tremendous combine. I think he could run sub 4.3 at the NFL Combine when we're in Indianapolis. But you have to wonder at the end of the day, is he going to be able to hold up physically? They list him at about 6'1.5", 195. I think he's probably under 190 on a given Sunday in Tuscaloosa, but he's got all the physical tools. Again, can go and play a Brandon Ayuk in the NFC West, hopefully a DK Metcalf, once upon a time a Cooper Kupp. The Cardinals have been allowing 100+ quarterback ratings seemingly every Sunday this year, Bo, and they just don't have the horses at cornerback. And while I would still think that Jonathan Gannon and company would like to fortify the line of scrimmage, they're not going to force a pick. They will take a number 1 corner in a draft class over a number 3 or 4 defensive tackle or defensive lineman. And so I think with having two picks potentially in the top 15, hopefully in the top 10 at the end of the day with Houston, Kool-Aid is going to be somebody on their radar potentially to add to that defensive secondary. What about the defensive line, Bo Brock? Because we mentioned Jared Verse, and while like edge rushers in need, everything pales in comparison to what is happening on the defensive line for the Arizona Cardinals, right? They signed a bunch of Band-Aid free agents. J.J. Watt's gone, right? Zach Allen got a contract in Denver. That's blown up in their face. Where is the Calais Campbell, Darnell Dockett-S type of prospect to carry this defensive line into the next half decade plus? Well, I believe he's at the University of Illinois in Champaign, Illinois. Jerzon Newton, who's a phenom, 6'2.5", over 300 pounds, can move lightning fast. The prototypical, if they're running a 4-3, the prototypical 3 technique Fletcher Cox defensive tackle for Jonathan Gannon's defensive line, so desperately missing this piece this year. Like, I like what Dontel Stills has done as a rookie. Mm-hmm. They've got some interchangeable pieces like Jonathan Ledbetter. They do not have a blue chip defensive lineman. And I think Newton, to me right now, is the for sure unquestioned top defensive tackle. Now, would you rather take him probably at the back half of the top 10 or maybe just outside compared to like taking him top 5? I think so. He's not Jalen Carter, and I think it would be fair to compare him to Jalen Carter. but I think he's the perfect avenue for the Cardinals to use one of their first 2 picks on. This is a guy that's going to be a stalwart, and he has a ceiling, Bo Brock, of somebody that can reach 7, 8, dare I say 9 sacks as a disrupting 3 technique.
Yeah, can he play like the Javon Hargrave role? Can he play, as you mentioned, like what we've seen from Ledbetter, go from inside to maybe 3-4 defensive end. They've got those 2 defensive linemen front sometimes, and you could definitely see a guy like Newton being one of those guys out on the field. He projects as a 3-down defensive lineman, but we know with JG and Nick Rawls's defense, that's not going to be asked of him. Out with the old with Vance Joseph, who's gassing his defensive linemen for 80 snaps, 70, 80 snaps a game, where they're going to keep him, fresh in a rotation, and he's going to be able to show off that explosiveness, that first step that everybody talks about with him playing in Illinois and leading the nation interior defensive linemen in pressures. That's what they want to do. They want to be disruptive as possible, and see the results of sacks and hurries and things like that. And I think Jerzon Newton, you add him to the rotation, you like what you said from Stills, you like a nice maybe role player like Ledbetter, but you start to bolster that rotation that was unknown now with guys that are, project to be big time players for the Cardinals. I love Jerzon Newton right now and how he fits into Nick Rawls's defense going forward. The Cardinals had a lot of luck taking a front 7 player out of Illinois nearly 2 decades ago in Simeon Rice. Different position, but you're looking at just a guy that can be a game wrecker in Newton, and I love it.
Illinois is a big boy program now. They're churning out NFL draft prospects, and it's time to take note. Every week, you got to take note. Johnny and Bo's Fab 5. Those are our top 5 for this week. A player that we left off, Bo, that is probably in a lot of people's top 5 overall for this 2024 NFL draft class. Your draft crush, tight end Brock Bowers out of the University of Georgia. Somebody that I like as a player, but it's a point of contention on our show, PHNX Cardinals. I do not believe wholeheartedly that the Cardinals can use either pick on a tight end. I don't care if he's Gronk reincarnated. The expectations of this team, should you draft a Brock Bowers, is he has to be the top 1 or 2 tight end in the NFL. And for me, that's unrealistic. This team needs to be hitting doubles, triples, an occasional home run. I think it sends the wrong message to this fan base. You take this kid. And again, that's not a knock on him. It's just the history in the first round of the position, Bo Brock.
He's the forbidden fruit of this draft for me. He's just tantalizing. There he is, making plays at Georgia for a 3rd consecutive season. He did it since he arrived in Athens as a freshman, as a true freshman. He was making plays right away for Stetson Bennett and helping them on their way to championships. Brock Bowers, so athletic, all the tools you want from a top tight end in the NFL. And you said it, he's got to be, right? He's got to be, he's can't miss as they come at the tight end position. But as you pointed out, when I look at Brock Bowers and I see him in a draft, in a mock draft, I shy away for the most part. I know that there's more pressing needs for this Arizona Cardinals team. But then you look at the film, you look at the playmaking, and he elevates any roster he's going to be a part of. So I think that's part of the equation. You can't just think of him as, hey, he's a tight end. He's gonna be the same trio, like the same guys that they have right now. No, he's gonna be more of a playmaker than an Ertz that's in the latter stages of his career. He's gonna be a playmaker more so than what Trey McBride projects to be, but we're not seeing on a week in and week out basis for the Cardinals. He's going to be an absolute problem and mismatch issue for each and every NFL defense. I almost know that definitively, but the position, it should scare people. Kyle Pitts so far has been a miss. When can you really point to a tight end that was taken early that was deemed a successful pick? Few and far between. So I love Brock Bowers. I anytime that you say something about him and slander him, I want to beat you. But at the same time, he deserves notoriety, but he is forbidden fruit. You can't at this stage in the rebuild take that player in that spot.
There's going to be a part of the offseason where we, for a small period of time, talk ourselves into the notion of this team taking him because Monty Ossenford, the GM, will be at the pro day, of course, for Georgia, or they'll have a top 30 workout of him. And we're all just going to have to hang tight. And because it's a Steve Keim move to take Brock Bowers. It's not an Ossenford move.
Dude, that's just spit in my face, spit in Monty Ossenford's face, all the goodwill he's created. And you're just going to say,
if they take a tight end in the top 10, I don't care if it's, football Jesus out there. You can't do it. You have to be
no.
smart.
If he is, you take him. Here's where I'll give my blessing. Right? If Monty Osfort and Jonathan Gannon, who has a scouting background, Dave Sears, hopefully he's still with this organization because he's going to become a hot commodity. Even in the early stages of his rebuild, if they say we need this guy, we can't let him slip. If he falls to us, then I'll give my blessing because
I need them to sit there at the post-draft press conference and say he can catch 100 balls in our offense or he can catch 80 balls in our offense, because you would have to sell me that he is a tight end / wide receiver. If he's a traditional tight end, even highlighting him as a tight end plus in terms of value and volume in terms of catches, that's not good enough. You have to basically pull a Kime and say, I'm going to reinvent the position of off-ball inside linebacker with Isaiah Simmons. You'd have to do that with Brock Bowers and say, we're going to split him out wide. And, we've got Hollywood Brown and Michael Wilson, and he's going to be our third receiver or our second receiver. Again, though, to your point, it's the forbidden fruit, and the Cardinals are forbidden right now in their rebuild to consider him as we transition from Brock Bowers to our mock draft simulator. I am going to share my screen. We're going to do this every single week of the PHNX Draft podcast with our friends at Pro Football Focus. They do a great job with the mock draft simulator. Here we've got it pulled up. I'm going to select the Arizona Cardinals. We're just going to do round one, and we're going to do the Cardinals' first 2 picks here. So again, check this out. I'm going to enter the draft here, and we've got it pulled up. Obviously, the Chicago Bears picking first and second. I'm going to start the draft.
Is this Johnny Venerable shows his parents how to use some sort of technology? That's what I feel like right now. That's the vibes I'm getting from you showing the PFF mock draft simulator.
Listen, it's October mock draft simulator. Some people need to be walked through.
I'm going to create a tab. I'm going to go to the mock draft simulator on PFF.com. No, let's see it.
How dare you, Bo Brock? Arizona Cardinals, they're 7th on the clock right now. I think the decision is a tough one here. They like Latu out of UCLA. Obviously, though, there are a couple guys in our top 10, our Fab 5 that are still available, Bo Brock.
Yeah, who are we feeling? Who are we leaning on here?
I think Joe Alt is the point here. I like Kool-Aid, fine, but Joe Alt, to me, we talked about it, second only to Marvin Harrison Jr. Again, lock it in. You got to feel great about that. Then how about these options right now? Newton's still available. Verse still available. McKinstry. We talked about this on PHNX Cardinals earlier this week. Check it out. The drive for some of these teams early on, the need to have to take a quarterback, the Cardinals won't have that if Kyler Murray comes back and shows that he's Kyler Murray again. They will reap the benefits of this talent falling down to these 2 picks, Bo Brock.
Yeah, and this is tough, right? Because you've got probably 2 positions that have been identified as premium positions versus interior defensive linemen. So you'd be going off of, do you draft the top premium position player prospects or really a need in the interior defensive lineman in Newton compared to McKissick, Kool-Aid? I'll just call him Kool-Aid. Why would I call him his last name? Because Kool-Aid's way cooler. And then you've got the verse from Florida State. Like, I don't know if you're like me. I'm debating between Verse and Newton. What about yourself?
Agreed. Because again, like, this is PFF's ranking, and respectfully with PFF, like, we think Newton and Verse are in the same category and above some of these players like Kellen King and Neighbors from LSU, who's a nice player. I think, to me, at the end of the day, if Newton shows that he can be that every down defensive tackle, and you feel good about B.J. Ojulari and Zaven Collins has 8 to 9 sacks this year and is building on that, the defensive line group, if it's even, I'm going with defensive line because it's so bare. The cupboard is so bare right now for the Arizona Cardinals at defensive tackle.
Let's do it. Let's build those trenches, offense and defense. You take Joe Alt 7, you take Newton 10, and the Arizona Cardinals, their roster just through 1 round in the NFL draft looks a lot better.
They're in a good position now. You think about fortifying the line of scrimmage, Bo Brock, allows you to be competitive in the uber competitive NFC West. Seattle, the LA Rams, San Francisco. When those teams are winning, it's with Aaron Donald, right? It's with Trent Williams, right? Seattle took a top 10 tackle last year. He's fantastic. Charles Cross, right? These teams in the NFC West, you can't get cute. It's what the old regime would do historically. So now you're in a position in this.
We'll just pay a guy the minimum to protect our franchise quarterback from Nick Bosa. It's like, come on, what are we doing? No, you invest in that, and you invest your premium picks. And I don't care if you took, Paris Johnson Jr., 6th overall. He either sticks at right tackle where he's been so solid to start his NFL career, and then you bolster that, like you said, create a strength with Joe Alt and Paris Johnson Jr. And then I love what Newton could do, and he could open up some things potentially for that rotation of edge rushers in 2024.
This has been the inaugural PHNX Draft Podcast. We're going to do it every single week. Check out the PHNX Cardinals podcast Monday through Sunday, your definitive Arizona Cardinal podcast. Like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star. For Bo Brack, I'm Johnny Venerable. We'll see you next time.
We all silly like the mayor.